Welcome to Whose Turn Is It Anyway, a podcast blooming with tales of our gaming group and the board games we're either growing or pruning from our collections. If you haven't already guessed, our main topic of conversation today is all about nature games. I'm Becky, your current first player, and I'm joined by Kerley.
Hi everyone.
And Adrian.
Hello.
They are both looking like majestic trees and not like smelly compost heaps. How are we all today?
Better for being called not a smelly compost heap.
Well, there you go. Come to me for all your,
Compliments.
Yeah.
Yes, very good. Thank you, dear.
Good. How are you, Adrian?
I'm not too bad at all. How about yourself?
Yes, I'm all right, thank you. It's the end of the workday, so I'm just pleased about that.
Yeah.
Start of the work week, though.
Yeah, don't say that to me. That's just quite miserable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Monday on our recording day, if anyone wants to know, and we're all just a bit work start.
Holiday next week, though. Yeah.
Holiday next week. Very nice. Very nice. I'm not on holiday next week.
No.
I'm only working 2 days, so that's something, I suppose. Anyway, let's talk about Hex. Adrian, what have you been playing lately?
So knowing that this was our topic coming up, I thought I would take a game that I've owned for a while and had never got round to playing and give that a sort of wheel out. So a game called Parks, very popular one, came out a few years ago now. I think it's 7 or 8 years ago, I'm going to guess. A game by Keymaster Games. And it's a very sort of, it's heavier than I thought it was based on people telling me how lightweight it was. It's a sort of light midweight game where you are going on through 4 different seasons. You are going through the trail of the national parks.
Very nice.
What you're doing is basically going along each season. You start at the beginning of the trail, and there are spots along the way, and you go as far as you want along the trail and then stop there and then take the resources or the action of what you want to. And then the next person will go. And a bit like worker placement, no one can go where you are. And if they want to, they've got a little campfire token that gets turned over. And then that's your once, it's not really once a go, but that's your one campfire spent. The thing is you've got 2 hikers. So you're trying to get get as much as you can out of getting both hikers to the end, but there will be people kind of in your way on the trail. So as you move along, there will be other people who have moved their hiker along the trail further and therefore are blocking your spots. And what you're really doing, what you're aiming to do is collect these different resources to then be able to afford one of the national parks. So you've got like sunshine or water droplets or mountains or forests. And the parks, which there's like a little display of parks, will cost you like 3 sunshine and a forest or something. And then
Sounding like Lords of Waterdeep, Adrian. It's sounding like that.
Nothing like Lords of Water.
You're putting your people places and getting stuff,
but
and
it's
then
not
cashing them in.
It's not worker placement. You're just moving along a track.
Oh, all right.
And there's no mandatory quests. And and then you'll buy that park and add it to your thing. But you can only buy parks when you get one of your hikers to the end of the trail. And when you get to the end of the trail, you have sort of 3 things. First of all, you get to relight your campfire. So when I said it's kind of your one campfire, if you get one worker to the end, they relight their campfire, your second hiker can use that campfire again. Okay. So there's a bit of a push-pull of trying to race someone to the end, but make use of the campfire, so you get use of campfire both times. And you can also then, if you're the first one to the end, you can choose the start player one, or the first person to take that spot can take the start player. You can reserve a park, you can purchase a park, either one you've reserved or the one that's in the display, or you can gain an upgrade. And the upgrades are sort of typical, like things cost 1 less, or if you get one of these things, you get something else. And so you'll get to do that twice because you'll have both of your hikers at the end. So the chances are you'll buy at least one park and you'll do something else. And you get to choose one of those actions with each hiker when they get to the end. There's also a lovely little bit which is canteens. So as I say, this is first edition. So I know this changes in second edition, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But in the first edition, the canteens are just like a card that when you put a water droplet on it, it'll give you like a mountain or a forest or something, some ability. You can swap some stuff around or whatever. And but you can only put water in it when you get it, i.e. you can't have an old water token. You need to fill up your canteen at a water source. As soon as you get the water, you can put it in there, you gain the bonus. And there's a lovely little sort of end between the upgrades and the canteen. There's like a lovely little light engine builder in there as well. So you do that for 4 seasons, and then that's the game end. And when I was sort of heard how light it was, and when I was watching videos and stuff like that, I thought this is going to be real light. This could be lighter than canvas, sort of thing, which is already paper thin, really. But when you get playing it, there is this push-pull of sort of how far when do you use your campfire? How far do you race one hiker up? Do you keep them together? That kind of thing. And so I completely misplayed the first turn by sort of racing ahead a little bit. But then we had one player who, there's one rule, which is the last hiker must head to the end trail when it's their turn. So they were kind of doing this thing where they had both their hikers almost as far back as they could and just were leapfrogging each other. So they got as many actions out of it as possible, where a few of us had sort of skipped the first one because it wasn't really a good spot to do. And then they played this real slow sort of ambling hike in this, I think it was the summer season, because there's the 4 seasons, 4 rounds. And they got so much out of it in that by being able to do that, and then won the game basically. And I'm convinced it's because they took this like little leapfrog version. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did. I do think that we played it at 5 player, which is like maximum player count. And I did find I was either last or second to last pretty much every time. And I did find myself constantly not being able to do what I wanted to do. And I didn't come last score points, but I didn't do well either. And I did wonder whether or not at 5 players it's a bit much. I think there might be a bit too many people blocking your trail.
Is there many games that can play 5 player, but you should play 5 player?
I mean, when it comes to those type of games, it's usually 5 player is not ideal.
No, yeah. I agree.
Normally the perfect is 3 or 4. It's probably the only place where you don't play these types of games, dear, is like your Twilight Imperiums and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and,
fair enough.
You know, Game of Thrones,
or where you get simultaneous actions quite often. I quite like big accounts with simultaneous actions. But yeah, this was just one of those where I felt a little bit like I'm not sure how well this is playing at 5 player because there's just too many hikers, and there's stuff for being at 4 player or more to kind of make the game fit 4 players. Yeah. But at 5 players, there's not a lot more at 4 players. I still think it's a tighter game at 4 players than it probably is at 2, for instance. Okay. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, and we'll probably now go and buy the 2nd edition. So, because I did a bit of research, so the 2nd edition, there's some positives and negatives from what I've seen. The positive is that it comes with a load of the expansion stuff in the box, and they have changed some of the way the upgrades and canteens work, which is nice. The other upgrade is that your backpack technically only has 12 spaces in it. In the 1st edition, they don't have anything for you to put those 12 items. You just got to keep track of having a maximum of 12. This, you get a little backpack with 12 spaces to put all the things in. They're all good. I think 2 things that I don't love about it. One is that it's a big box to fit all of the bits and pieces in, whereas Parks is a tiny little box and it can fit one of the 2 expansions in it, to my knowledge. It's kind of designed to take one of the expansions. So it's still a smaller box. And second, it just kind of loses a bit of charm. It feels very sort of modern minimalistic board game style, whereas the old Parks is very, don't know what the word is, sort of very twee. It's very, the like parts of the trail are on a shuffleable set of cards sort of thing, that all have a nice bit of artwork on it, whereas the 2nd edition, you just shuffle up the symbols and place them out, and it doesn't quite look the same. All of the national parks had beautiful art that was all done by different artists in the 1st edition. Nice. 2nd edition, the artist I think there's just 1 or 2 artists on it, so it looks kind of similar-ish across the board. But because the price of buying the 2 expansions will be the same as me getting the 2nd edition, it feels like I might as well just sell off the 1st.
Well, when you're selling it off, maybe give me first refusal as most of the time.
Maybe I'll let you borrow it for a little bit. So if you like it first, dear.
And then
must acquire games.
Yeah, and then I'll probably pick up the 2nd edition because I enjoyed it more than, as I say, because I've got a few of those sort of lighter weight games that are just nice to kind of, where they're just slightly more than an activity.
Yeah.
They're sort of not quite a board game, but and I thought, oh, this will fit in with that, and I'll have to decide. But actually, it's enough more of a board game that it doesn't quite compete at that level of sort of. There's something to decide. There's something you sort of get in the way of each other on the trail.
Out of interest, because it's sounding a little bit, and forgive me for this because it might not be the case. Is it a little bit solvable? It feels like what you're saying is the tactic that is obviously better. You could just do that every time and everyone could do it. Is that not fair?
I think once people know it's there, we didn't know because it was our first playthrough.
Yeah.
I think once people know that you can do this sort of slow amble up, people will start and decide to block you a little bit more and play a little bit more like that. And the other thing is because each season, all of the like spots on the trail are mixed up again. Yeah. So there's no like right order to do things. So I was
going to say it doesn't sound very replayable at the moment, but that kind of fixes that, right?
So with the setup, one of the bits is you take all of the basic spots on the trail and you take one advanced and you shuffle it all in and then you deal it all out. And then each season you pick them all up, add another advanced tile in so the trail gets slightly longer each season, and then you shuffle all of them up and then deal them out in a different order. So in the third season, there was a spot that came out which is a second or an extra opportunity to buy parks or buy upgrades. And the first time that came out, that was right near the end. So everyone bought 4 parks that time because that's the maximum you could get out of using that spot and the end of trail. So everyone absolutely smashed it that round. The next round we played, the park purchasing one was like the second spot on the trail, and people had blown all of their resources trying to get the ones at the end and weren't expecting it to be back at the start, and therefore no one used that spot really on the 4th season. So it's not. I think there will be patterns, and you will learn how each other plays and have to sort of possibly counterplay a little bit. But I don't know that it's solvable in the fact that, you know, if you think about worker placements, quite often all the spots are the same. There's no change up with this because they're in a different order and you can only go along the trail. You can't go back along it. Then I think it's less solvable. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's not even midweight. It is light midweight, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And we'll talk about sort of how the theme came into it, I suppose, in a little bit.
Think it would work at 2?
Yeah, it was recommended at 2 originally for me as a game for 2 people. I think it will work at 2. Again, I think if someone gets a good strategy down and the other person doesn't deliberately counteract it, there's a chance that it could feel a bit askew. But as soon as someone knows what's going on, I think the next playthrough they would make sure that doesn't happen, sort of thing. So, but yeah, it was recommended at 2 or 3 as best player counts when I looked. So
sounding good.
Cool.
It is sounding good. Kerley, yourself.
Well, I'm glad that was such a detailed rundown because this is not going to be. So, yeah, I've been replaying some old classics lately, which is, you know, what I like to do, to be honest. I'm a little bit against playing new games if I can possibly help it, unless it's like ones that I'm really hankering for. So, yeah, I've played a few games lately, but the one that I played most recently was at JP's Games Day, which was for his birthday, and it was a lot of fun, was Beyond the Sun. And we kind of taught that to Adrian. That was your first time playing it.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. For those of you who don't know, we've talked about it before, so we'll just give a brief rundown, but nowhere near that detailed. It's a space game. The main part of it is actually, I guess, researching new technologies and stuff like that, which enable you to carry out all the other actions easier. You've got a little board over to the right-hand side, which you basically can go out and explore space, colonize new planets, and increase the production that you get in your main area. So it's kind of like a mini... It's not a 4X exactly, but there's elements of it, but light. You can play it, even a 4-player, 2 hours, Adrian, would you say?
Yeah, it was a little bit longer than that, but that involved Teach and me kind of figuring things out. So yeah, I'd say about that.
Yeah,
it's the one with the tech tree, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mostly based around that tech tree.
It is basically a tech tree with a very small like area, sort of, what's the term? Area control sort of thing going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
To one side.
But it's, you know, for people like, oh, that sounds very beige. It isn't. It's really good fun, and like there's loads of really good decisions in there, really interesting kind of ways you can go with it. And we played with the expansion, which I've played with before, but it reminded me of how much better it is with it. It's got asymmetric powers and different kind of, you know, abilities they've all got. It's, it just adds a lot of variety to the game, really, which could, again, become reasonably solvable without it. So, yeah, it adds an awful lot. So, Beyond the Sun, definitely recommend it, especially if sci-fi is your jam and something you want to play a little bit lighter, even with 3 or 4 people. It's really good fun.
Would I like it?
The theme, no. The game, yeah, I could see you liking that.
It's not. Yeah, there's.
Is it the one that's really white?
It is. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's not a boring game, but it does look it. I'll be honest.
Okay.
It looks like a spreadsheet or a sort of a flow chart,
I
if you
don't mind
like.
a spreadsheet. I don't mind a spreadsheet.
Looks a bit like it looks like a basic flow chart sort of thing. But no, it's really good. And I'm always sort of not sure how I feel about overly asymmetric player powers. So I was a bit, when it was like, well, we're going to put that in. I was like, okay, we'll see how it goes. But actually, for a first game, it gave me something to aim for. Because one of the bits is when you do this thing, which is like an ultimate thing that you do, isn't it? Or certainly my board was like, when you get to do this, so when I move the last thing off of a cold track or whatever, you get a big bonus for it. So I was like, right, so what I need to do is remove stuff from this track. That's what I need to aim to do.
Yeah, gave you a bit of direction.
Because that must be a good thing to some extent. And I thought that actually really helped out with the first playthrough, which I was surprised by, because normally asymmetric is just adding extra stuff you have to think about.
Yeah, no, definitely does that. It is there exactly like you say, kind of the way that other games, and this one included, give you like end game goals to go for.
Yeah.
This gives you abilities which tells you, right, this is what this faction's about. It would benefit you normally, but it's going to benefit you even more.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
I wish my playthrough of Scythe had been like that, because you kind of got the end game goals there, and that should have made me a bit more kind of aimed, and it just didn't.
Scythe is one of them. It takes a little while to get used to. And there's an awful lot going on.
Maybe.
One of your favourites, isn't it, dear?
Well, I think I should have liked it, but I just didn't really. I would play it again though.
It does grow on you sometimes. I think Dan was a bit nonplussed
so does
by
mold,
it, to be honest.
but doesn't mean I should want to do it. Yeah, I should like it because it's a Stone My game, and I like most of theirs. But
it's a very different Stone My game, I think.
Yeah.
And not so much these days, but different to the ones you've played by quite a bit.
Yeah, maybe. So what I have been playing lately, well, Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth. So I have spoken about this before. It is a really great game, but I won in a different way this time. So it was just me and Kerley that were playing, and I won by getting all the sciences. But what is it in?
It's the alliances.
Yeah,
the alliance. Yeah. So I had one of the pipes, one of the plantiers, one of the blah blah blah. And
it's meant to represent alliances with the folk of Middle Earth.
Yeah, so that was interesting. It did kind of come down to the wire because we were kind of halfway through the third age, I think, and you were about to absolutely storm it unless that very specific faction came up. And
it's just one of those I had to flip. I had to take a card, and it was going to flip either two cards or one card. The one that was hiding two cards benefited me the most. I risked it. It did not pay off. Nice. Long story short.
But you would have absolutely, totally kicked my ass. Had that card literally been any other green one.
I don't really mind losing that one because it's so quick and like it just goes for it and it's really actiony.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of like, oh, I lost. Never mind. I don't mind taking a risk in those games. But when you're like committed for like 2 or 3 hours,
you're just not prepared to take that risk, are you? At that point,
it feels worse when you lose as well. So yeah.
I'm not going to describe how this game plays. Basically, it is Seven Wonders Duel, but with Lord of the Rings pictures that I don't care for.
And some different nuances as well.
Yeah, a little bit. It's better.
I
better.
actually prefer
it.
Me
too.
How do you compare the two? Have you played Seven Wonders Duel?
Yeah, briefly. I didn't really get on with Seven Wonders Duel, but enjoyed Seven Wonders Duel Lord of the Rings. But I think I played Lord of the Rings first. It was over the same sort of bit of time. So, Lord of the Rings for me is definitely the superior of the two.
Yeah, I think so.
Interestingly, I played Seven Wonders only a couple of days ago, and it did make me think, I want to play Lord of the Rings. And also made me wonder what would a Lord of the Rings version of the actual Seven Wonders game sort of look like, because you've definitely got the ability to have seven different starting factions with the Seven Wonders. Yeah. Like you could have sort of Mordor and sort of Rivendell and all that lot with its abilities to do it. But I think the beauty of the Lord of the Rings Duel is that there's no counting involved. You've either won or you've not.
That's it. Yeah.
And
I don't
think you could translate that directly into Seven Wonders itself in the same way. But it did make me kind of go, this would be really cool if it was at least reskinned and had given a little bit of sort of love for Seven Wonders Lord of the Rings actual game rather than the Duel version.
to our main event then. So this episode, we're celebrating games inspired by the natural world. So I just wanted to think if everyone could pick one of their favourites. Mine, all say it once, 1, 2, 3, Ark Nova.
Well, I knew yours was going to be Ark Nova.
No, I'm surprised
I mean,
by that.
obviously, I love Ark Nova.
But you can't pick it because I said mine first.
Well, no, I can if I want to.
All right then.
But no, I've got a few different ones. What about you, Adrian?
I'm the same. I'm sort of struggling to pick one that sort of really stands out as being like my favourite nature game. Generally, I do enjoy nature games, but quite often I find that I enjoy them for a little while and then pass on the nature games. And I don't know what it is, but yeah, I suppose Earth is currently a pretty good one that I quite enjoy playing. I enjoy showing it to people a lot as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I heard that about you.
It makes sense because it's quite formulaic, isn't it? So that's quite easy for everyone to, like, you do the same series of things, pick your thing at the top, get those things, play a card or whatever.
Play it in a 16 4x4 grid or whatever it is.
There's what I love about that game, and it's not my favourite, but what I do like about that game is that it's action. You're always doing something. So it's never one of those games where you're just like, oh my God, it's 10 minutes before my turn again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's simultaneous actions. If you've played a bunch of other either like sort of engine building or tableau building games, you will have something to reference it to. Yeah. And we'll talk about it in a second, but it's an easy theme to sort of explain what things are for. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's probably it. As I say, there's a few others that are in my mind, but without going just through all of them, I think I'll pick Earth for the sake of moving the podcast along.
Yeah. I could go for a few, but I'm probably going to go with a forgotten favourite of ours that we need to crack out again, and that's going to be Everdell.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, you've been playing a lot of it online, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been playing a little bit online. I do like to, the trouble is with the board game, and it's not really, but a lot of the time it's an event, especially when it comes to those big box games like Everdell. And it takes half hour, 45 minutes to set up. Everyone's coming around, which is nice in some ways, but sometimes you're having a cup of tea in the morning before you go to work, you just want to scratch that itch a little bit easier, then you can just play it on Steam, basically. Do
it's
that.
Nice
do
rendition.
Some challenge modes and stuff like that as well, so there are some changes to it. But yeah, I really like Everdell, just the whole theme of it, and, brings me back to the times of, probably no one will know this, but Animals of Farthing Wood.
I remember Animals of Farthing Wood.
A bit before, if you're, I think, probably even under 35, you're probably going to struggle to remember that.
Yeah. See, my thing, every time I think of animals be like anthropomorphized, whatever the term is, it's Redwall, the books of Redwall. I don't know if you guys ever read them.
No, I know of them. Yeah, I know.
But they were basically like that kids version of like. I think it's why I ended up moving on to like David Gemmell and stuff like that, because it's these big high fantasy things with like a cool storyline and all that lot. And there are some lessons I learned in that are mainly from only two of the books in that series, but there are some lessons I learned out of those books that have kind of stuck with me. That just. I loved the Redwall books, and I finally ditched them when I moved house only 6 years ago. But I'd held on to them.
Why did you get rid of them?
From the age of like
I never get rid of any of my books,
8, 9 or whatever, just because they were never going to be read again. But I kind of flicked through them and read the back again, and it was like, I remember that story. That's so cool.
I guess now you've got things like Kindles and reading online. It's not like you're never going to be able to do that thing, but I think there is something special still about holding a book, especially like a childhood book.
Yeah. It's just that there's something about like when you're a kid having those animals doing things and stuff like that. And what I found, and it's kind of the same with Animals of Farthing Wood, is you then tie a personality or a type to a creature, and they kind of do that quite a lot in those kind of books where it's like, well, all of the badgers are stoic sort of thing and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of, I don't know, as a kid, it's easier to grasp those kind of things, and yet you still get these cool high fantasy stories at the same time. So, I love those. But Animals of Farthing Wood's a good shout as well. I enjoy that. Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, so probably Everdell. I really like a lot of the mechanics with it. I know some people get frustrated with I guess it's probably even more so than Ark Nova and other equivalents, a little bit of a luck what you draw kind of game, because it's not only what you draw, but it's also what you pair with. Have you played it?
I have. I wasn't in love with it, if I'm honest, but I think it's just we played the first time I played it, they forgot a couple of core rules, and it kind of push the game in one way. And then after that, I just felt like there was other games doing a similar thing. But I did enjoy it. I just didn't feel the need to kind of play again.
I think the expansions add a lot to it.
Which I haven't played. Yeah. I played with one of the expansions, which was the first one.
Pearlbrook.
That's the worst one.
And
so I would recommend trying.
It's one of those where I'd happily give that another go, as long as you didn't put the stupid tree in the middle of the table.
Hey, no,
you leave that tree alone, sir.
But I would happily give it another go. It didn't wow me, but it wasn't like, oh, that's dreadful sort of thing. So yeah.
I think I should want to play it more, but I think it's a bit more of a complex game than it looks like it is, with all the very cute kind of crittery artwork, which is really lovely. It's not complicated by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot more planning in it than just the look of it, I think, would infer.
That's fair.
So for those of you who don't know it, Everdell is basically a worker placement game at its heart, but it's also a mini tableau building. The tableau doesn't really matter into where you place it, like Earth.
But it's collecting sets. The king goes with the queen and all that kind of stuff.
And basically the idea is there's mostly only two different types of cards. There's buildings that they live in, and then the animals themselves. The idea being is the animals you don't have to pay resources for if you've already got the building that they live in. If they haven't, they can still go into your tableau, no problem at all, and they function relatively normally. But you have to pay the resources to do it, and sometimes they add extra benefits if they're in their building as well. So so it is just, if you don't pluck those and you don't see that building type and you've got that animal, you've got to pay for it, and you're not getting the bonus, and someone else in their starting hand gets 4 cards and they all happen to go together, then it can feel a little bit like swingy and there's nothing really you could do about it. I get that. I still really enjoy it. It's good fun, and mostly it doesn't work out that way, but the potential's there, and I've seen it. So.
I think I end up feeling by kind of maybe the second or third season, I realised like, I'm just so far behind because I didn't get the things, or I didn't prioritise the right things. And then you think there's not really a catch-up mechanic in that game. When you go in south, you go in south.
Probably not. I can't remember enough about it to say if there is or not. But I can't remember an obvious thing.
You're not really playing. You're playing against other people. It's about getting who gets the most points. But stuff you do doesn't really affect other people, other than getting things like before they did, perhaps.
I mean, mostly it doesn't. It's not really a gotcha game, but there is a few bits and bobs in there. Like, I forget what they're called, but like there's essentially someone you can send over to the other person's village, which gives minus 2 VP and takes up one of their spaces. So there are ways of, screwing people over, for want of a better term. And obviously, being a worker placement by nature, it does, you do get in each other's way. But what I find quite interesting about the game, and some people don't like it, but I found it quite an interesting mechanic, is that if you're done with the round, then you skip one turn where you take all your workers back. Everyone else just keeps playing.
Yeah.
So like you could be done half hour before everyone else, which isn't a good feeling, is the downside.
That's what normally happens to me.
But at the same time, it makes it a little bit more tactical, because as soon as they're done, they take all their workers back, and now all the spaces you've been waiting to go down on, you want to go, right, there we go. So sometimes you want to stretch out your turn just to wait for that turn where they take them back. Which
is cool, but I wish they didn't call it spring, summer, autumn and winter, because I can be in spring and you're in summer.
Yeah,
in the same tree.
It's weird. It's not very thematic in that way. I know why they did it.
Yeah, but I remember it really sort of throwing me, because I was like, right, so we're all done now. And they're like, no. And I was like, see, I'm going to be in spring and you're going to be in summer, and we're supposedly in the same forest. Yeah. And it was like, I don't know why, because we abstract loads of things in board games, but I remember that really throwing me out and being like, I don't love it now as much as I probably would.
That's hilarious that that's what switched you off.
It really caught me off guard, and I don't know why, but I just didn't enjoy it.
You'd have just called it round 1, 2, 3, and 4, you'd have been happy.
Yeah, probably more happy than, or not even rounds, because they're not really rounds, are they? Because a round would suggest something ends and you start something new. It's not, as you say, it's just a retrieval action where you gain an extra worker.
I mean, they do it a lot in card games, right?
They do it in loads of games. But
your favourite one, Concordia, kind of does that.
Yeah, but they don't call it here's different years, so we're all in weird different years sort of thing. And it just really threw me. I remember it really.
I can understand that. By the way, I love it, and a lot of people love it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad game, but I can see there's a couple of things that could irritate some people, I guess, about it. It just doesn't irritate me.
It has the most edible looking resources.
Those berries.
they look
Those
amazing.
berries are
not
so...
only edible, but like they're actually really good quality. Even
Yeah.
like the little pebbles and stuff,
Yeah.
they look great.
Yeah, they really
and they're like
do.
even the little logs that you can pick up. And get this for thematics though, the places where you pick them up from is actually where you would find them. Like there's a little bit, you've got a bush with the little berries on, and that's where you get the berries.
It's
and
just, it is
down
beautiful.
by the water is where you get the pebbles, and
It's great.
it's brilliant.
It really is lovely. And that's, I think Everdell is a really good one for this. So I was thinking about what makes a nature-themed game. Now, obviously it's about things from nature, such as trees or animals or whatever. But Everdell is like that. So the theme is you are a little critter collecting wood, trees, berries, whatever. So it's about nature. But the actual mechanics, although Adrian doesn't like it, you are using a nature kind of thing. So spring, summer, autumn, winter, you're using those kind of terminology to actually progress the game. Now, I do agree, it does feel weird when you're finished, you're finished spring or whatever, and everyone else is in a different season. That is a bit weird. So I think they have kind of shoehorned the fact it's seasons.
Yeah.
It's really just round 1, 2, 3, and 4, isn't it? But I see why they did it.
It's not even rounds. That was my biggest thing, was it made it clearly sound like it's rounds, and yet it's not. It's just a worker retrieval action. But anyway, totally sidetracked. But yes.
So I think there are a lot of games that are, the subject matter happens to be about naturey things. So we've just mentioned kind of Everdell there. Photosynthesis is another one that I've really liked the look of it. I bought it in the UKG bring and buy, like I bought everything else, basically. Counted all the bits, took it all, made sure everything was there, looked absolutely beautiful, watched a run-through video. Did I ever play it? No.
It's such a mean game.
Is it?
Yeah. Because it's about trees blocking sunlight for other trees, and the sun moves around the board.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about, right, next turn, how do I block the other player from getting sunlight to their trees and stuff like that?
I don't like the thought of that. Nature's meant to be nice, but it sounds a bit cutthroat. But then it is really,
there are
isn't it?
quite a few nature-themed games that really have sort of, I think they're quite disarming. I think nature games in general are quite disarming because it feels cozy and comfy, and you can put really mean and really abstract games in there, and as long as you can tie it to something nature themed where it feels right, you can get away with them being exceptionally abstract or exceptionally mean or those kind of things in a board game. And I think Photosynthesis is the perfect example of that. It's an exceptionally mean, very abstract game. If they hadn't had trees and they had just had different sized rings,
bigger monsters and smaller monsters or something.
It would have felt more like, I was thinking more like, not Othello. Is it Othello? What are the like Yinch and stuff like that, where they're just very plain rings on a board that make up these very like mean competitive abstract games. It would look like that if it wasn't for the trees, and what the trees are what lift it into this idea that I think loads of people were like, oh, it's about growing trees.
Yeah.
It's not. It's an area control, like denial of area sort of space abstract game that's just mean, and they've managed to put a nature theme on it and attract more people to it.
So do you think sometimes people use that as a bit of a hook?
Yeah, animals and nature are universally, what's the term? They're a universal language, right? We can all speak the language of these, and like, Ark Nova or anything like that, or any sort of zoo or farm game. Okay, well, these next to each other, you can have multiplication mechanics, like breeding mechanics and stuff like that. You can have in trees and forests and stuff like that. You can have so many different things that just naturally resonate with you as a person because we've all seen them in life. And so they make games more approachable. They make them feel nicer, I think, generally, or look nicer. And I think you can put some quite complex mechanics in there, and the nature theme allows you to teach it if it works out. Yeah. If it makes sense, that it allows you to kind of involve all of those things. And I think that's the real plus of nature games, and why we've seen so many where this industry is moving further away from trolls and princesses, and not the actual game, but like the D&D sort
the kind of
stuff,
high fantasy
and
kind of
space
characters.
Typically, or you've either had fantasy, space, or war. Typically, like as board game themes, as these have become more accessible, things like nature games have become more prevalent. I think it's because of how approachable and how easy to understand they are.
Yeah.
So whether they're mean or not, it doesn't matter as long as you've put a nature theme on it, sort of thing.
I don't know if this game would count as a nature themed game, but Spirit Island. So it is kind of about protecting your island, right?
I would.
So it's kind of about protecting your island, and you are the nature, and you're kind of trying to defeat the horrible plastic invaders. But if that wasn't about something so appealing, I don't think I'd have even given it a look in.
Bet you wish you hadn't now.
Well, I sort of like it to a degree, and then I just get sick of it. I just get so sick of it.
I remember you get a headache playing it.
I can only play the ones where they can play the fast and the slow actions at like the same time, or which one is
the
it?
lightning one, basically.
Yeah,
where
because
you can play.
I just can't get I'm not a thick person. I don't think.
Well,
shut up, you. But I don't. I can't get my head around that whole concept of what will this look like in a minute? So what do I need to do now to make the thing that's going to be different in a minute be beneficial to me? I just can't be asked in my brain to do it. So I think if Spirit Island hadn't have been so enchanting with the tactileness of all the naturey stuff, nature wood pieces, the invaders are plastic and horrible. So it's
you play as
really
an element
beautiful.
of nature.
Yeah, it's
and I think that's it.
absolutely beautiful.
It's the elementalism that sells, certainly the beginning gods or spirits, whatever you play, because it's like fire does damage, stone stands up against things, like waves move things, all of those kind of things you can intrinsically link to that. So personally, I don't know how much it is nature, but it is elementalism, and it's that similar feel, isn't it? Is at the start, especially with those starting spirits, it's very much a case of I understand this because culturally we've always tied fire to damage and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it absolutely does. I think artwork, like in that game specifically, is what totally brings you in. The beautifulness of the tiles, everything is just really, I don't know, just absolutely draws me in. I can't think of any nature games that I don't like the look of. I was just trying to think of some there, but I can't think of any that I wouldn't look twice at if they were.
No.
Having being nature based would make me look at them again, even if I didn't like the thought of it, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely the case for me. I'm a real sucker for nature games. It's not saying it would be there's plenty of nature games I haven't got along with, but I'll always be willing to try one.
Yeah.
Which kind of, probably says something about me, I'm not sure, but I do find it quite appealing, just comforting almost to play a nature game sometimes. It shouldn't matter really. Mechanic's a mechanic is a mechanic, but I don't know, feel better about it.
And I think quite often the artwork in nature games is quite often better than other games. So like if we think about any of the spans, obviously Wormspan isn't really a nature game, but if you think of any of the spans, they have beautiful artwork that's kind of representative. And it's the same with parks. Say I played the game, and each park being lovingly sort of transferred into a different type of artwork and with a different feel to it and all that kind of stuff really made me look at what I was getting. Like, oh, that's nice. Like, I can see that. And I've visited a couple of them. So I was one of them I bought. I was like, I know this. I went through this. And that was nice. But what also happens with a lot of these games is they have facts in them. So you are mildly educational at the same time. Sneaky education into board games.
Bringing me in beautifully to my next point of board games as like an educational tool.
They'll have a little fact on it, every card or everything. Or sometimes in the rule book, it'll tell you a bit about the environment or... is it
Earth is really good for that.
Yeah. So's Wingspan, so's Parks. I think, is it Serengeti? There's one of them where it tells you about
Serengeti.
It tells you about the conservation efforts in the area and stuff like that in the rule book.
I don't know if Wild Serengeti does.
There's one of them I'm sure is like nature reserves or something like that. I can't remember. And I remember seeing in the rule book, I just had a quick flick through, and it had a whole bit about all the conservation going on to protect these species and stuff like that. And they're just sneakily educational. And again, you don't have to pay attention. I think me and one other player were the only two in playing Parks that were actually reading the facts at the bottom. But I was kind of like, that is cool to know. Like, sort of thing.
I always read the bird facts on Wingspan. Now, that wouldn't have made me buy the game specifically because it's got bird facts, because I've got the internet, so I can look at bird facts whenever I want. However, I think I would use that as a kind of allure to show someone that game who probably wasn't really interested in gaming, but if they were interested in birds, I might kind of use that as a way of, well, this is a game about birds, and I have to explain mechanics to them because they wouldn't know that kind of stuff. Whereas I think, like you said, if you have played any kind of tableau building game, they're very sort of similar to grasp, aren't they? But I think the fact that it's got those little bits of facts where it comes from, whatever, bit like Ark Nova. So I had to mention it. So I remember when Kerley, me and you were in Disney World in Florida, we were going around Animal Kingdom and we were talking about some of the animals and we were like kind of saying, oh, that costs this much in our, a Sumatran tiger, and it's
I can only put this in a 3-size enclosure, or whatever it is. Yeah.
So I have played that game to death, but those things do sink in a little bit, don't they? Like in Wingspan, okay, you're maybe not going to remember the exact wingspan of a bird, but you might remember where it's from. You might remember what it looks like. So I think
what it's called.
I think those it kind of is like sneaky stealth education, isn't
it's the same with like Splitstone's games mycelia.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
Beautifully drawn mushrooms and all that kind of stuff. And they're all, not all of them, but a lot of them are like that. A lot of them have very nice artwork or very good pictures of what they're showing off that kind of just nice to look at. Quite often in different genre games, I won't look at the artwork more than like a cursory glance at, oh yeah, cool, I get what the artwork is now. But with a lot of nature games, I find myself staring at the art, and I have completely forgotten it's my turn and just stared at artwork for a good couple of minutes,
and then someone's been like, or whatever.
Whose turn is it? Oh, it's mine. I was staring at the cool artwork. Yeah,
I think Mycelia is a really good one. Well, the game is a really good one, but Mycelia, a strategic mushroom game.
Yeah.
I haven't played the other one. I'm sure the other one is awesome, but we're specifically talking about Splitstone's Mycelia version here. You're using like the tile placement, and that represents different kind of environments, different kind of nutrients in the soil. And okay, that could just be red, green, yellow.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. But I love how they've kind of turned that mechanic into a bit of the theme. Like it doesn't matter that it's red. It doesn't matter that but they've made that mean something. And I think in nature games, it's really nice when they make those sorts of things mean something, and they use the wind, and it's just I think maybe like you said, because it's a universal kind of understanding, you can get a lot of those things in there, and I really like that.
On a separate note, have you played Cascadia?
I have.
How did you find it? Because it always appeals theme-wise.
I really enjoyed it. So, interestingly, I played Fall first, which is a 2-player game, which feels very similar that Davey picked up at Essen, and we played that. And I'd been looking at Cascadia for ages, and then won it a while back, and finally got a game of it in. And it is very good at that kind of, you're drafting two things that are together, and so you're trying to make, sometimes the best choice is just picking one thing that you really need. Sometimes it's kind of picking two. So the two things you pick is there's a bit of landscape and then there's a type of animal, and each landscape tells you what kind of animal it can have. And then one of the animals you'll pick, you'll place on a landscape, like this hex, which is a bit of landscape that can take it, for instance. So bears can't live in rivers and sandy areas. They need a forest, for instance. And it will show you the little symbols that's allowed for it. And then at the end of the game, there is points for having the most of one type of terrain together. And there's also like points for bears want to be in couples sort of thing. So each pair of bears are worth a sliding scale of points. Each salmon along the river might be worth, but they change up very slightly. Like you deal a different one out for each animal type. You deal each animal type out at the beginning of the game, so the goals are normally similar but slightly different, and so it kind of gives you that little bit. I found it's a really nice game, and strangely doesn't really fit into what we talked about, because the artwork isn't the greatest. There's a little bit of artwork in there. It's not the greatest, but it is just a nice abstract draft. These two things, you've got to make a choice of, do you want a really good thing that you must have, or do you want two okay things kind of thing? What are you doing? Or maybe they're both fantastic for what you want, but that's good at that point. And you're just drafting those things together and then adding it to this increasing landscape. Whereas Fall is a 2-player game where you're playing a landscape in the center.
Oh, okay.
And you're competing for trying to get what you want out of it. But it's a similar drafting mechanic.
Is that an old game or?
Cascadia? Yeah. it'd be about the same age as Parks, I think. Maybe a year younger than Parks, 2 years younger than Parks. I would say it's at least 5 years old. They've got a roll and write version out there now. They've had an expansion. So, yeah, it's been around a little while. And Full came out 2 years ago, last year, something like that. So, again, that's a little publisher. So probably not as well known, but very similar feel if you like the idea of a 2-player competitive version rather than I'm building my own little landscape sort of thing. Yeah, but it is nice.
Yeah, food for thought. Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds quite
I can
nice.
bring that along at some point.
Yes,
I
please.
would like to play it. Oh, that just where you were describing it there, just kind of when you were saying the artwork kind of, it's not spectacular. It's just a bit of something. It was making me think of Barron Park, which fits kind of into this kind of.
About that classes as a nature game, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I hadn't thought of that until just now because Barron Park is basically Tetris
with
bears on it, but
I really like it.
I love Barron Park, but it could be robots, it could be colours, it could be
any number
patterns.
of things.
Yeah. So it's only nature because they happened to pick bears. But why did they pick bears? Because people like bears, right?
Could have been theme park as well. Could have been any kind of park as well.
It could have been anything. It could have been anything like that. But they picked an animal because people are just drawn to them, aren't they?
That is one game that there's not really very many ones that I know of, theme parky type games.
The one that is there, it's a bit off topic, I guess, but theme park did look a bit dry and looked a bit, but it was the same with Zoo Tycoon. Zoo Tycoon looked very dry to me, and a load of people said it's basically like a bit of an Excel sheet going on. And for some reason, that one didn't draw me, despite the fact that I love Tycoon games.
I thought you were going to say, despite the fact I love spreadsheets.
Oh, well, I do love spreadsheets, and I love Tycoon games on computers, so you'd think I would love them both, but it just didn't quite capture me in the same way. But yeah, no, you're right. There aren't many theme park games out there, but I think there's quite a few missing genres and sort of interests from that kind of thing.
Get on it, Adrian.
But yeah, sure.
They are just undeniably pretty, aren't they? When you've got trees, bears, whatever, any nature thing, I guess because there is nothing, well, in my opinion, more beautiful than nature. Like you can't make anything nicer than that. So maybe that says more about me than it does about game producers, but they clearly think that a lot of people think that because they just keep trotting out nature games.
Yeah, like we played Atoll. I'm sure it's called Atoll at Essen last year, and that suffered from having a few too many types of animals because it's at the bottom of the sea and you've kind of got reefs and animals that go with it, so you need a certain number of reefs around animals. Certain animals prefer more reef or less reef sort of thing, and you're just creating a tableau of ever increasing stuff, and there's a little bit of conservation in there because it's, do you do something now that will pollute the environment more but gives you a bonus sort of short term, or do you clean up the environment which give you bonuses, and there's a little bit of that in there. And that game was great apart from the fact that it was relying on a little bit like Everdell, I suppose, is it was relying on you seeing the symbols you needed to get the things you wanted, and there just being slightly too many symbols. But that, again, because it was reef and there was just little bits of artwork in there, different types of fish and all that lot, even though, I'll be honest, I wasn't having the greatest time with it, I still found it just quite nice to be sitting there and playing and seeing what animals came up and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it can take, like nature theme game can also take the edge off not having a great game in a way that other games
Totally agree.
don't do.
I think that's why I have managed to become better at Ark Nova, because I've played it so many times, because even if you lose, which I do and did and still currently do, you're making a nice zoo with, so I'm sitting there thinking, oh, how good would this zoo be? Oh, it's got donkeys in it and it's got a meerkat over there. Like I'm sitting there thinking about how nice my zoo is. Now it is scoring absolutely pants, but I'm having a nice time because I managed to get cocknose monkey, because who doesn't want the proboscis monkey because he's cool. But that's not going to get me points, but if you're losing, you might as well just go for cute animals, right?
Well, and the one I thought of then was Forest Shuffle. Because I really didn't have a great time with Forest Shuffle because Becky was to the right of me clearing some cave mechanic, which meant I lost all options every single time. I was like, well, I've got no options to play with here. Everyone else has and I haven't. But I was still like, oh, I could get an elk and I get a... And it did the job of kind of distracting me from how rubbish a time I was having of that game.
It does soften the edges, doesn't it?
I liked it.
It's fine, but it does fall prey to that. It's almost too many different animals, and you've got to try and find the things you're looking for.
Yeah, and not have someone constantly sweep all your options off the board.
You know, they should have just not had that mechanic in there. But
I agree.
Yeah, I must admit, you do suffer a little bit from if you're going for one particular thing and someone else decides to go for that as well, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So you just need to either continue on with that and just accept you're going to have a worse time, or you go on to a different one, which then someone else could decide they want as well.
I just felt like I had spent the entire game top decking, and I was like, I'm not getting any...
Yeah.
But anyway.
It is a really bad game to score as well at the end. It's so convoluted.
Yeah.
There are apps now, which is great, that you take a photo and it does it for you, but that's not going to be perfect every time.
Yeah.
But it really does need a bit of an easier time for scoring that game. But I do like it still. I do like it. Because it's pretty. Would I like it if it was about something that wasn't nature? Probably not.
All of these I tend to find, I feel it's weird because nature games remind me how abstract a lot of board games are. I feel very aware of how abstract they can be compared to other games where I think sometimes the theme fits better. And yet I also find them likable, so likable that it's kind of like, well, I can see how abstract this is being, because quite often this being next to that is just an abstraction. I could turn these things into, as I say, like Dungeons and Dragons, or I could have turned it into any number of other genres, this game, but they've made it a nature game, and that makes it nicer for some reason, just makes it more approachable. And yet I'm very much aware with nature games quite often how abstract they are. And I think nature games lead themselves to more abstract games naturally as well. Where you are trying to place things next to each other or build up rows of stuff or whatever. That is purely an abstraction of a mechanic. And so I feel more aware of them in nature games, and yet
you don't mind them
care
much.
almost. It's a very odd sort of opposing thoughts I have.
Yeah. I guess it's a good place to mention the spans. So obviously Wingspan came in first, and everyone knows how that one. Everyone. If you don't know what Wingspan is, just look it on Google, because we're not going to talk about it again. I do wonder if Wingspan hadn't been invented, would Wormspan have been as popular?
No, I think if they'd brought out dragons first, I don't think as many people would have gone after it.
And I think if they'd have brought out dragons first, they would never ever have done birds after that.
Maybe. It's hard to tell, isn't it? Like we're not in
Elizabeth Hargreaves' mind
and Stegmeyer's mind, sort of thing. So it's hard to know, right? But I do wonder how popular dragons would have. Now, again, I remember when dragons came, the Wormspan came out, and loads of people were like, dragons, thank God, not boring birds. And I was like, yeah, but I wonder how many people would have said the opposite way round, where it's like, birds, not dragons, sort of thing. Because
well, it makes a massive difference, doesn't it? Because like we just said earlier, the very common tropes of board gaming, D&D type fantasy, space, maybe nature to a degree, but
it wouldn't have stood out. That's kind of the point, really.
No, it wouldn't. It would have just been another fantasy kind of game, wouldn't it?
And I wonder if the art style might have changed as well, because dragon games typically don't have that nature-y style of sort of illustration. Quite often they're quite bold and fantastic.
Yeah.
So I would wonder if there would have been those changes as well. But yeah, I think Wingspan has led to people clocking on to nature games a little bit more as well, and to how useful they are, because again, it's this bird can go in your like reed area or the forest area, all that lot really doesn't have much to do with. You're supposed to be collecting bird photos or birds themselves. I can't even remember what the actual.
You're spotting them.
Are you spotting? I can't. I remember there being something like, you've got to collect, and I remember thinking this is like what row it sits on is a little bit abstracted again, but it's a thoroughly decent tableau builder.
Yeah,
I've had my time with it personally, and I think there's a lot of people out there like that, but it is a good, solid tableau builder that, again, is just approachable. Yeah. You can put it in front of so many people who wouldn't normally adhere, like look at board games or stuff like that, and they can just fall in love with the artwork and not care how they're doing. Meanwhile, the heavy board gamers will kind of discard the artwork and do the engine building bit, and therefore it can kind of bridge those two types of games.
Yeah, I think that is where it really is a good game. We've used it like that, haven't we? With friends of ours.
Yeah, absolutely. That aren't really gamers.
Yeah,
right?
But could see the appeal of this and then found themselves learning sort of board game mechanics, and when we've sort of shown them other games, they're like, oh, that's a bit like this. Like, yes, that's the mechanic of that. And it's really nice that you can sort of use that as a like a hook, a lure sort of thing. I do wonder how, if we hadn't have had Wormspan as like an alternative version, would Finspan have ever come out? Because I don't think it's different enough, really. But it lends itself perfectly. You're just going downwards, not acrosswards now, because it's water. You've still got...
I think it would have still done well.
It's not cute, though.
No, but some people are different. Like, I think people generally have a couple of different types of nature that they love.
Yeah.
They will love the sea, or they will love, like... sort of, what's the term? Like safari or zoo or forest or you know... Or birds and sky and stuff. You know, there will be different types of nature that people naturally go towards. And so people who might not have been so interested in birds might be more interested in fish.
Yeah, maybe.
So I think it still would have done well. Obviously, it's hard to tell how well it would have done without the others first. But he just needs to bring out the other expansions that he sold a massive box for that haven't come out.
What, for Finspan?
For Wingspan.
Oh, Wingspan, yes. Yeah, there is...
Sold a massive box with it'll fit all the expansions. We haven't heard hide nor hair of the last 3 expansions.
God,
He's got plenty of...
He's been busy making other spans, hasn't he?
He's promised to bring out these ones, but I think that's just my what's the term?
Cynical?
Yes, that's the right one. Just my cynical feel as to he could have finished off Wingspan quicker.
I don't know.
It's like the age-old George R.R. Martin thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Could he
Stop writing other things, write the thing.
Write the thing that we all fell in love with,
Yeah.
sort of thing. And it feels a bit like that. But anyway, and again, I think if he sold a big box and then with promise that it'd fit all his expansions and then hasn't brought out any more expansions since then.
No one's getting rid of their box. Yeah, no one's getting rid of their big box. They're waiting, aren't they?
But on a separate note, a bit controversial maybe, I think if you've got one, I don't think you need all 3. I'd be perfectly happy with Wormspan. I don't need Wingspan or Finspan. They're not.
So
they're both good games, but not different enough for me.
You'd cash out Wingspan and keep Wormspan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I can see that.
People have said that about Pandemic to me. Like, do you really need 12 copies of Pandemic?
It's because you love it, though.
But
right?
that's it. People will love Wingspan, and they will absolutely have Wormspan, Finspan, whatever else, Frogspan, whatever else he brings out in the future. They will collect them all because they love the core mechanic, and there's differences enough that it feel fresh for them. But they want to kind of hone in on that, and that's the way I feel about certain games. Is that I will buy all the Pandemics because I love Pandemic. And I might only play it once and then sell it on, but at least I'll have found a different style of a similar game.
You only have to look at my Lord of the Rings collection, mate.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not immune.
Anything that says Lord of the Rings on it.
Yeah.
Do we think Great Western Trail is a nature game?
No.
But it's about sheep/cows.
It's about being a cowboy.
Yeah, but you could go. It depends what route you want to go down. I kind of agree, but if you do, you go down a whole separate genre of things like Caverna, Agricola, the farming side.
Caverna's not. Oh, I suppose you are.
It's got
farming.
sheep in it.
Yeah,
you are farming, and then we go down Nuve Rosenberg kind of route, and where do you draw the line?
Nature-y.
I think we're kind of talking about where the animal is the main focus kind of thing, rather than being a resource or an outcome of farming type thing, which I guess is a different.
The only reason I asked was because I was looking at the BGG's top games from 1 and was kind of wanted to know basically how many there were until you get to a nature game. Ark Nova is obviously up there, but Great Western Trail came before Wingspan or Everdell. They were quite substantially further down the list. So I just thought, actually, I mean, it kind of is a nature game, isn't it? I mean, that it's based about animals.
I think it's about being
animals,
a cowboy.
animals are not.
I think that's the primary.
Yeah.
It's because I was wondering whether you'd bring up Dog Park, and I controversially don't know if I think of Dog Park as a nature game.
That is not a nature game, in my opinion,
because dogs are an animal, but they're not like they're not a wild animal or anything. Which is where I feel like almost nature lends itself to being about wild animals and plants rather than domesticated. But again, I don't know that there's a hard line there. It's just, I remember when I knew you were doing this episode, I was like, I wonder if she'll talk about Dog Park, because you do like Dog Park.
Yeah, I do.
But I don't know how much of I think of it as a nature game, and therefore I was kind of in my brain going, I wonder if she will or not, sort of thing. And now you've brought up Great Western Trail.
I guess when we're sort of looking at board game nature games being either about the mechanics being kind of naturey or the themes naturey, and I guess Dog Park is the theme is like I say, it's not really naturey, it's doggy, but the mechanics are nothing to do with nature, are they? It could be about any other thing at all. There's not really an evolution of seasons. There's not any kind of growth or any kind of other natural kind of leanings.
The reality is that it's an animal game, not a nature game. That's usually one and the same thing, but it's not in this example.
Yeah, I agree. But the dogs are cute.
Yeah, and again, it fits in that same thing of all of these other games, is that it's cute.
Yeah,
like it will appeal to people just because they want to look at
pictures of
dogs, basically.
yeah, definitely. I mean, that's definitely what sort of lures me in, because the game isn't naturey or anything about it's about collecting resources, but you don't have to use any kind of special skill for that or trade things. It's not. Yeah, it doesn't use any kind of like ecosystems or anything like that. You're just collecting stuff.
No, it's the same as, I think, Calico. I think that's sold a lot because there's a cat on the box.
Yeah.
Because actually it's quite a mean drafting game about quilts, which is quite cool. But I think if there hadn't been a cute cat on the box, I don't know how well it would have sold compared to... I
don't think I've played it.
I haven't played it, just watched of it, because there's a series of them. There's 3 different games all in the same series, and the other 2 I can't even think of the top of them. I remember looking at that and then going, oh, but what about Calico, and reading up about it. But yeah, I think that's sold because there was a cat on the box more than it did anything else.
And it is a cute cat.
But yeah.
So I think that just about wraps up nature games, unless anyone else has got any other stuff to add. I'm always going to be a sucker for them, and they will make me look at a game twice, even if I wouldn't have been interested at all.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Place.
Yep, definitely.
And I'm sure I will continue to buy more when they bring more out. So, time for sleeve, receive, or leave. These are 3 of my top favourite nature games, and you've got to decide which one you're doing. So, Ark Nova, Everdell, or Wingspan? Kerley, which one are you sleeving, receiving, and leaving?
Well, we're leaving Wingspan because I much prefer Wormspan, so that kicks that one out straight away. It would be wrong of me to say anything other than Ark Nova sleeving. So yeah, I guess I would receive Everdell. Seems about right to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Adrian?
Yeah, same to me. Same for
wow.
me. Yeah.
Okay.
So Wingspan can go in the bin. And as I say, I had my time with it. I enjoyed it to start with, and then it sort of got samey for me. And I can't imagine more of the expansions improving it. As I said, Everdell had a bit of a mixed time with it, but would absolutely play it again. And Ark Nova, I was so impressed with the first playthrough that I bought it and sold it still in shrink wrap, because I realised I was never going to get to the table with probably other than you guys. So sold it within like months of buying it, still in shrink wrap. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed my play of it. Should play it more. I just haven't. So yeah, exactly the same way round.
Maybe if we get time, there'll be a good one to get in on the events list.
Yeah.
Yep.
Always. So I'm obviously going to sleeve Ark Nova. There's no question with that. I'm going to receive Wingspan. I mean, I should really sleeve Wingspan, seeing as I threw water all over my copy before. I'm going to leave Everdell. I know we've got the big box, and I know that means I should like, and I do like it.
Maybe we need to sell it then, love.
No, I don't sell it. How very dare you? Selling a game.
I might never play it again, but you can't sell it.
No, it takes my whole Kallax. No, we could keep it as it is. No, I do like it. I think I just wish I liked it better, and I think I wish I was better at it. But that's because I don't play it enough, because there's always another game that I think I'd rather play. But I think you're right. With Belfair expansion, it makes all the difference.
I need to give it a go
really
with that
does.
probably as well. Yeah.
It really does. So yeah, keeping Ark Nova, receiving Wingspan, and leaving Everdell. So basically that brings us to our penultimate turn and what's coming up round the corner. Mr. Kerley Curlington, what are you looking forward to?
Well, this is actually a good one. So I've got Apex Legends coming up at the weekend.
He's nicked mine.
What? Why am I nicking yours?
That's what I was going to say. But anyway.
Yeah, really looking forward to playing that. I don't know much about it. I know a little bit about the Apex Legends universe from the computer game. Not an awful lot, though, but just the way that JP and Rob and everyone else was loving it when they played it at the UKGE is just like, okay, all right, you've sold me. Let's have a go.
Is it a dudes on a map game?
It's kind of in an arena, and it's you can play lots of different styles as far as I can tell, but it's kind of different characters with different abilities in an arena, shooting and beating each other up until there's a winner. So it's really not your sort of thing.
No, it's
a skirmish game in a board game, which I've not seen many of them that I think personally have been done well, but when I played it on Gaming Rules with JP, I was blown away with it. So my copy, I think I might be the last person in the country to be getting theirs. That's what it feels like. But my copy is landing on Tuesday. And then on Sunday, JP's already got his, and we're going to have a game of that. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to trying it again because it blew me away with how good it was and how many of the typical skirmish tropes it threw out the door sort of thing. And we're not going to follow those ways of doing things. We're going to do things in a completely different fashion. And probably put Glass Cannon Unplugged on the map for me because having Frostpunk being received so well and now Apex Legends blowing me away, I think it's kind of, for me, put that publisher on the map.
Yeah, that's fair. It kind of gives me, having not played it, by the way, but it's making me feel like Necromunda. I remember that from when I was younger. And I don't know, have you ever played Necromunda?
Yeah, I've played a lot.
Is that a Warhammer
Are there any
thing?
similarities?
Because I was going to say, from the way you're describing it, it's making me think of Warhammer.
Yeah,
it's not. It's one of those things. If your only experience of skirmishing games is Necromunda, then I think there's comparisons to be sort of had. If you are aware of a lot of other war games and skirmish games and stuff like that, I think there's better comparisons. But yes, it's 4 guys or 6 guys running around a map trying to shoot each other in teams of 2 or 3 sort of thing. And so, I think it does a really good version of turning it into a board game rather than having normally sort of skirmish games don't have a grid on them. It's kind of measure 6 inches or whatever in the direction you want and then measure 22 inches to this person and all this kind of stuff. It gets rid of all of that and gets rid of dice as well, which I think is really interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, my skirmish experience is playing Warhammer once with my very first ever boyfriend about 1 million years ago.
Yeah.
And I won, actually. I was Skaven, so take that. And that's it. I think that is my only ever skirmish game of anything. So I've got no comparisons.
But yeah, there you go. Apex Legends, looking forward to it.
Yeah, everyone's been raving about it, haven't they?
Yeah, I love my playthrough. I remember, I think Tambo and that lot and Rob played it at Expo, I think it was. I can't think who it was, because me and JP had already played it on Gaming Rules and they played a demo of it, I think, at Expo. And it's just really good. There are some really nice touches in there, but I'm sure at some point someone will talk more in depth about it. But yeah, really impressed with that. On that day that we're playing that, in the morning, I am trying to get a game played so I know whether I need to sell it or not.
All right, what's this?
Harry Potter Catch the Snitch.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's the Quidditch board game, basically, that I was always going to back because it's Harry Potter and it's Quidditch, and I've been waiting for them to do a board game of that for forever. And as I've said before, Night Models royally screwed up the campaign. Night Models are well known for not doing the greatest job of keeping their games alive and up to date, and even somehow dropping entire licenses. So I am not sure how I'm going to feel about this game. And even if I love it, I don't know how often I'm going to get to play it, because again, it's like because it's like a sports game, right? So it's kind of doing that. It's almost similar to a skirmish game or something like that, because it's very much about taking people out and getting the quaffle and all that kind of stuff to the end. And then there's a catch the snitch mechanic in there as well. So I am finally, hopefully, going to get to play that, because it's been sat on the shelf for 2 years, I want to say it is.
Wow.
Purely to know whether or not I want to keep it or whether I want to sell it, because and it's a weird place to come from, right? I want to play a game to decide if it's okay or bad.
Yeah, but if you don't think it's gonna get to the table much, or isn't going to be superseded by a different version of a similar sort of game, then maybe selling it's a good thing. And again, sort of seeing as Harry Potter is one of my favourite IPs, let me know.
Yeah, because it's and again, it's had that thing where the Kickstarter showed one game and everyone gave the feedback that basically what you were playing towards was being so far ahead on the tracker that the catch the snitch part was then just a formality. So you're trying to score all the points in the actual game of Quidditch to get the seeker further up this this sort of track, so that it made catching the snitch easier. And everyone was like, that's a really boring way to end the game, because the match ends and then this just like quick card game sits at the end. And everyone was a bit like, that's a bit rubbish. So they changed it up so it was all integrated as it was going. Which sounds better, and it has had okay reviews. So I might think, actually, this is good enough to get a few more games in it, and possibly paint up the miniatures and stuff like that. I'm not a big miniature painter, despite how many war games I play, but it might be one that kind of just holds in there, sort of thing. But yeah, it's odd to be playing a game to be like, I want to know if I need to sell this, rather than I want to know if I'm going to enjoy it. It's an odd place to come from, but. There you go. That's what I've got coming up.
So what's coming up for me is actually getting some games in the calendar that are not incorrect pictures of a podcast episode. Like, these have all been scheduled as FinSpan because I couldn't figure out how to do it on After Game. So it was just easier to do that. So I'm actually going to get some games and I'm actually going to put them up on the app. So there we go.
Nice.
I'm going to say 5. Just pulled a number out the air.
5.
5. Yep.
Oof. Is this by the end of the year or?
By the end of the day. No. I'm going to say over the next 3 months, I'm going to do 5. There we go.
It's achievable.
Yeah. Watch this space for
what you played.
What I played. Yeah. And with that, our final turn is coming to an end. Thanks to everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe and review the show on your podcast player of choice. And we'd love it if you could recommend us to at least one person who you think might enjoy the show. Special thanks to all our coffee supporters. And some people say Ko-fi, but it's definitely coffee because it's spelled Kofi and it's in the picture of a cup. So thank you to those. These are a wonderful select group of listeners that choose to throw us a few quid every month as a sign of their support. And for that, we are always eternally thankful. All the money goes straight back into the show, meaning we can upgrade our setup. And we've recently bought travel microphones that help us when we're at places like the UKG where full recording setup isn't possible. So thanks to everyone, and we'll be back in your ears really soon. So until then, whose turn is it?